Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, uh, IGNCA, for inviting us and organizing such an important topic as a seminar during this time. So let's start. Let's start with the presentation. I hope you can see the screen. Yeah. Am I audible? Am I audible?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah. So this is the first slide. What we have put, and yeah. Screen. This the top one. Top one. Yeah. So this actually is a place some 20 kilometers from Thrissur. It's a cover. It's in a place called Agadiyur. Why I showed this as a first slide is just to explain how temples would have evolved in Kerala, because we had a lot of nature worship, Sarpakawa, mother goddess worship, and that's the origin of temples in Kerala. And if you see this particular one, which is there in the image, it's a place called Agadiyur, and the tree what we see behind, it's a tree called Kolavetti. It's in the IUCN red list, and only 200 of such trees are surviving anywhere in the world. So that way, it's such an important site, and it's a protected site. So there is also a temple around it. So I just want to show the origin, how temples would have originated, and how are we protecting it even now still. Yeah, the next. Yeah. So our topic is issues in conservation and solutions. What we have put in the webinar. Yeah. So what we will be doing is we have done some projects. We will be presenting something about those projects, and also we are trying to make some kind of guideline, or trying to figure out what is not right or how things can improve. Especially being an architect, having done some temple projects, this is an area of our special interest. So I thought in this seminar it would be good to share some of them. And if, as I showed in the earlier slide, we started with nature worship, ancestor worship, mother goddess worship. And if you see the later larger temples, so we can find out that most of the big temples like Vadakunathan or Vaikam, Perumanam, the big temples what we see in Kerala today, it's all dated somewhere between, or it's originated between 7th and 12th centuries. So we will have to believe there was an integration of the systems of what was there earlier and what came later. So we can see it even in rituals. And what happened is later, Kerala, as you all know, we had a strong spice trade and we had trade with Europe. So what we could figure out is around 14th century, new materials like copper came into Kerala, and that was integrated to the temple construction architecture. And again in Kerala, temple craftsmanship and rituals reached a certain fineness and maturity, which possibly you can't find in many other places. And for that, one particular reason could be its geographic location, which is pretty isolated. That could be the reason why we could continue, especially in rituals, to a certain maturity. So, but after 20th century, especially after 1970, there have been a lot of restoration revitalization projects which are still happening in Kerala. A lot of them are good, some of them have issues. So in this presentation, we are trying to show them. First, we'll show some of the projects we have done, and then go to the guidelines part, or what is happening where. So this is the first project, which is Vadakunathan Temple, which is, we worked here for almost 12 years, 12 to 14 years, 2005 to 2016. We had around 500 craftsmen working on this project. It was supported by Venu Srinivasan sir from VGKT, and it was a very complex project. Yeah, it was a very complex project in the sense it had ASI had a control of the place, and then the temple belonged to Cochin Devasam Board, and then we had the donor, and then the temple authorities were there, and the priests were there, archaeologists were there, astrologers were there, and and then the devotees were there. So we had to integrate or go along with every of these people, because all of them were stakeholders in the temple. So that way, and it was a complex project, but it was a learning experience also for us. And yes, it also got us the UNESCO award in 2016 for excellence, with possibly the blessings of Varkanathan, we would like to believe. Yeah, and we are showing the before after. Each of these slides you can see it's before after. You can see the top one is before and the later one is after. This is Goshala Krishna. We had 12 shrines around, and six shrines around, sorry. And this is Goshala Krishna. And each of these slides actually, because Vadakunathan itself, it can be a 2-hour presentation. We're just showing samples of it. Now we can see in this, we have changed the copper. We have reused the old copper, heated and reused. And we have gone for the line plastering below wherever it's gone. We have repaired the wood. There was a damage in the bottom portion, so we have corrected it. We didn't touch the top part much, because again, we go as per the archaeology principles, where we try to keep whichever is good, whichever can be kept. We talk it about 60-40 and things like that. I think archaeologists would know. So we had to follow all these principles and try to do the restoration in the best possible manner. That was our principle. Yeah. And this is the next slide. You can see the paint getting removed from the base, which is a stone base. Many times they paint it with Japan black, so we had to remove it, bring it back to the authentic form. Yeah. And the next project we are showing is Bhagavati Temple roof work in Guruvayur. It was the donor was Dilip Velodi, and then this work happened in 2018. So this was the original roof, which was a very temporary structure, although very important temple and one of the busiest temples in Kerala. So then we had to make it into a proper roof. The advice, the Vastu part was given by Kanipayur, and this is the final one, you can see. And here again, we are lucky to have some very good craftsmen. Some of them are not there with us anymore, who have worked on this project. And here the basic work we did was in Kerala Vastu or architecture, you all will be knowing, many of you will be knowing, there's something called Purankota. Means you fix, it's very much like prefabricated structure. You do the structure outside, fix it, and then you just take it out and fix it in this main shrine. This is especially because here we had very limited timings for work. We could work only for 1 hour, 2 hours in the afternoon, because it's a busy temple. We can't disturb the devotees or the main flow of the temple. And yeah, these are some of the works when it was happening. So you can see the Parangota, Agangota, and there are many interesting stories, mythologies connected to all these temple making. There are endless myths connected with these temples, but I think we'll need a totally new session for it. Now I'll just go through all this. Yeah, next. Yeah. And here we've just tried to document some of this, some of our trainees have done. And we have a whole book on it where the entire structure is documented, how the joinery was made and what are the different joinery and how it is done. So I would also see, because I'm sure a lot of architects are watching this, it's something which should be promoted in colleges. We do learn a lot about Greek and Roman architecture, but I would say we learn a bit less about our local architecture. It's such a lot of, even for me, it has been, all these projects have been a big learning experience. We see a lot of knowledge with all these craftsmen, how the wood is joined, and again, how they respect nature, how the wood is cut, how they, like in Malayalam, they call kadem dalem, or which is what is base, what is top, and how you respect the nature and put the wood, and how do you cut the tree. I think there's a whole source of knowledge which is lying there unexplored. Especially for architecture colleges, I would advise, okay, they should at least have something. I'm sure some of the colleges do have, but it should be made mandatory if possible, learn the local architecture. Next. And this is Guruvayur Kottambalam work. We just completed it before the lockdown. Lucky to complete it before the lockdown. And yeah, next. I think people have already spoken about Kottambalam. And you can see it's again how we did the conservation. You can see a lot of black paint and oil in the base, and a lot of enamel paint, blue paint on the top. So how to remove it, what to apply for wood. That's again some science, how it was applied earlier. And this was Guruvayur projects are very important because it's one of the busiest temples, as I said earlier, and many people would see it. Being a busy and a crowded place, people could see it, figure out okay how it should be done ideally, or what is the system of doing it. That way, it was a very good experience for us. Plus, we hope it will help people also to understand. Now, there's the interior. There was a lot of mural painting done recently by the students, which again we could remove. It's not a traditional or a original mural. It's done something few years back. It is like a temporary thing, so we had to remove it, and then we had to kind of restore it back to the original condition. Yeah, this again, there was a roof for the stage where there was a lot of soot, and we had to clean it, do chemical cleaning, and then some paintings were visible inside, so we protected it. So I think it's a whole process. Like we have to work with many experts and figure out. And again, there's a copper roof which was painted, so we tried to bring it back to the original copper and then do a coating. So I think so how to treat wood, how to treat copper, how to treat stone. These are the different aspects which we try to do. And this is again an interior shot. You can see it. Yeah. Next. Yeah. Yes. And now we come to the issues, the basic issues in temple conservation. And the materials we are talking of is timber, laterite, granite, copper, lime. Yeah. Yeah. Should go down. Next. Yeah. Yeah. And I think down. Yeah. Yeah. And I think the basic issues with wood, as you all will be knowing, okay, one is termite, and then you have cracks developing, and nailing is an issue sometimes, and non-availability of craftsmen is an issue. And then painting, you can see here, they painted all kind of colors. So these are some of the commonly seen issues. So what we would advise is no, because I'm sure some of the temple organizers or the temple people would be seeing this webinar, and I hope they would listen to us. You should never paint wood. Always try to protect it with some kind of preservative. And there are three preservatives commonly used. We have an oil developed by our craftsmen, which is essentially oil added with a lot of herbs, and you boil it just like how you make a hair oil. So these craftsmen make their own oil, and then you have we also use according to the situation. Sometimes we use cashew oil, and in certain cases we use linseed oil also. So these are the things which is used. And then the next material we talk about is laterite, and laterite is a common material for temples. And again, you can see some of the common things which they do with laterite is they often paint laterite, which is an issue. You have to again protect laterite, either leave it as it is, or you have to do a coating for the laterite. It's always better to leave it in the natural form or with some kind of natural coating. And this temple, what you can see on the right, is an archaeology protected temple called Chemmantitta. It's a beautiful temple. Again, I think when we talk about conservation of temples, a lot of decisions have to be taken. And okay, this temple, the roof structure is not there. It's an ASI protected monument, and it's you just have this gopura like this as it is. So there has been a decision taken by the ASI that we will keep it as it is because we don't know how the roof was. So I think that's also something very interesting. It's almost like an old relic. Why I'm saying this is because when we see some temples, some examples where they had beautiful temples earlier, they pull the whole thing down and make a huge concrete structure there, which is also happening. I'm not saying every temple is doing that. Some examples are doing that. So I think this is an area where you need a lot of awareness creation. So our purpose also of making this guideline or trying to bring out some small booklet is to bring some kind of an understanding as to how to protect these temples, because these are all valuable things which we have around us. So how to protect them is something which we need to look at. Yeah. Again, the next material is granite, and you can see how to protect granite. You can see the common issues which we see in granite is you have painting over granite, and then you have cracking granite. So how to protect it? So these are some of the issues which we have faced or we are trying to figure out. And lime is the common material that we have used. And I don't suggest using cement in any temple, which I'm sure a lot of you would know. And while doing Varakunalan project, we had a lime workshop separate where this was made, and we had a lot of craftsmen who knew how to make lime, and we had this people craftsmen going searching for ingredients, bringing it and making it, preparing it, leaving it for 15 days. So I think it's a craft tradition which India had for maybe thousands of years, and it's a bit sad that we still have. I'm not saying we don't have people, but it's a bit expensive and it's become uh, very means it's there, but the number of people are very less. So it's something which needs to be promoted, because you can see lime monuments staying there, surviving for 500 years or more. Whereas when we use cement, sometimes you can't say how long is the survival, 50 years. So again, lime is a breathing material. I think all these things many people would know. It's a breathing material. It's a natural material. It's an organic material. Again, when we talk about temples, I think something very important is that you have, I think some Balagopal sir talked like this. It's a space for bioenergy, where a person goes inside, get energized, and you come out. So in such and the rituals are also based on that. It's the rituals are also based on bioenergy. So you can go into the temple, refresh yourself and come out. And for that, the place also should be organic. You can't go to a very plastic space, get energized and come out. So that way, temple, I think the other speakers also said, temple is considered as a living person. The entire structure is a living person. So you have a breathing. So that's why even when you do a project, the astrologers or the people connected to the project will ask the deity the permission to start the work. These are some of the rituals we also follow. Okay, there is a question asked to the deity whether he wants the work to be done or not. And if it's no, yes, we don't do the work. And if it's yes, yes, we go ahead with the work. And these are the processes we have gone through in our temple projects. And it's very interesting. And again, we have to respect the time, we have to respect the seasons, we have to respect whether it's the moon rise or the moon ebb time, and whether it's Uttarayanam or Dakshinayanam, which is the day. So I'm not trying to promote all this, but what I'm trying to say is it's also in a way it talks about the connections we had, with nature, the connections we had with wood, the connections which we had with lime, the connections which we had with workers or the craftsmen and the material. So I think it's a deep connection which India had everywhere, and it's a bit sad that it's coming down. I would never say it's gone, but it's important to restore it, to revitalize it. And basically, I think again preparing lime is such an interesting exercise. You have around eight ingredients. Some of them are rare, so you have to go and collect it. It's almost like making an Ayurvedic medicine. It's very much like making an Ayurvedic medicine. You have to prepare it, you have to keep it for 15 days, and then you have to start using it. You use jaggery, you use a whole lot of ingredients for preparing it. So I think that's the whole interest, or that's the whole interesting part about restoring temples. And this is about copper. And copper, as I said, we always had the question, how did copper come to Kerala? Because India never had a lot of copper earlier. Then we did some research and we were able to figure out, yes, copper was one of the materials which was transacted during the king's period, or in 14th and 15th century, because a lot of churches in Europe used copper. So again, we could find a person, Professor Matthew, who did a lot of research on Indo-Europe trade on metals. So again, he could find some clue on some kind of a transaction that has happened in 15th century with a Portuguese ship and Kochi Maharaja, where a lot of copper has come to Kerala. So after that, we've been using copper, and there are two ways of protecting copper, and how you do it. How I think there's a system of roofing, the technique. I don't think since we have a short time, we can't get into the details here. But I'm just talking about the protecting system. It's better not to coat it with paint. You can use a natural protector, or you can leave it as it is. It oxidizes and it gives a natural patina, which is also a protector of the surface. Yeah. So again, some other issues of temple landscape, gopurams, flooring, roofing, signage, lighting and sound, handrails and counters. Yeah. Now the temples, in a way, as we said, Kava, were protectors, or they were spaces where we gave space to everything. I think the whole idea of Kava is, okay, we are not alone in the earth. We have the whole nature, we have the whole animals, we have all the plants, and there are some Kavas still where human beings are not allowed to enter every time. So you give a space for the spirits, you give a space for every animal, every plant. I think that concept is the origin of temples. So I think it's very important to protect that landscape. And some of these examples I'm showing are not all perfect examples. It's just to show, okay, what we should do or we should not do. And a common feature in a lot of Kerala temples is additions of a lot of gopurams and again a lot of mandapams inside, or space where people do not have can stand without getting wet or without. So I think a lot of these additions have come recently, and it's important to and you can see things like tiles, interlock tiles, and so I think what to use, I think it's very important to have a set of guidelines, to have a control on what can come in a temple, what cannot come. And it's especially important that authorities like the Devasam board follow it. And out of maybe 3,000, we just had a rough count, around 4,000 temples in Kerala. Few, only 100 or more than that would be protected by ASI, either state or center. Rest, you have around 3,000 temples just out in the open, and many of them are very important, very beautiful, very interesting, and with a lot of archaeological value. So it's and every temple cannot be protected by ASI. It's simply not possible. So there, it is important that some system is followed, and at least some guidelines are promoted
Afternoon.
and told to the
Good
temple
afternoon.
authorities. Yeah,
Good
yeah,
afternoon, sir.
yeah,
Sir, I may request you to conclude the
yeah.
session because
We are
we have
concluding.
another
Two
session at
minutes.
3:30.
Yes, 2 minutes. We are concluding. Yeah,
Yeah, sure.
and then finally about the flooring, you can see how the temple flooring should be done, organic flooring which was there earlier, and then so how we should do the flooring. That's again something which we need to see, and about the roofing, the original roof and the concrete roof, how to go back to the original. And signage, these are small points. Maybe signage, some people may feel it's not so important, but again, it's an important point because we have a world full of visual imagery today. So how to protect it, how to control it, it's also something which we should standardize. And again, lighting and sound, we have loudspeakers and we have harsh lighting. And this is some example which we have done. We'll just put it as an example. I'm not saying it's the best way of lighting, but okay, that's what some ways we could do. And some of the light fixtures hanging around, yeah, electrical fixtures, yeah. Yeah, so I think this is the last thing. We just hope that these slides explain some of the aspects,
Thank you.
and also it could help in raising the awareness about the rich heritage of our temples in Kerala, and also all the temples can be revived in a holistic way. Thanks. Thank you all.